A little girl's voice was recorded saying, "I'm still here." And the chilling part wasn't the whisper itself. It was that Zak Bagans had already left that house 2 weeks ago. The audio was never meant to play on its own. But tonight, inside the dark, empty Nevada safe house where Zak stored all his raw evidence for the next season of Zak Bagans 2025, Ghost Adventures, 5 brand new terrifying audio encounters from the latest season. The clip started looping by itself, echoing through the hall as if the child was moving closer, step by careful step. Right before the lights flickered, the narrator muttered under his breath, "If you're watching this, hit that subscribe button. You don't want to hear this alone." The motion detector in the evidence room clicked on. A low hum filled the air. And the story began exactly where no one wanted it to begin, inside that safe house where the temperature dropped 10 degrees in seconds. And Zak Bagans found himself staring at the door he'd be sworn he'd never open again. The door marked Case 14, the Prescott house. Zak pressed his palm against the cold metal. Even through his gloves, he felt a vibration as if something inside the room was tapping back. A single tap at first, then 2. Then the unmistakable rhythmic pattern of a child knocking softly to be let out. He unlocked the door. It swung open on its own. Darkness greeted him, thick and unmoving, except for a blinking red light on the far shelf. The audio recorder. The same one that captured the little girl's whisper, "I'm still here." The whisper didn't sound like it was coming from the recorder anymore. It sounded like it was coming from the corner of the room. Zak lifted his flashlight. Its beam barely pierced the black. For the first time in months, he spoke out loud into an empty space, not for TV, not for fans, but because he suddenly felt watched. "Is someone in here with me?" Silence. He stepped forward, his boots echoing. The air smelled like wet dirt, like an open grave. The recorder blinked brighter, as if reacting to him. He leaned out. "Why did you turn on?" The recorder clicked and played something new. Something he had never heard before. His own voice. "Zak, don't leave me." He froze. He had never said that. Not in that house. Not anywhere. The voice repeated, more urgent, distorted, as if pulled through 1,000 miles of static. "Zak, don't leave me." A scraping sound came from the floor behind him. He spun around. Something small, maybe 3 feet tall, was crouched at the far corner. The shape didn't move, didn't breathe. Only its shadow shifted across the wall like liquid spreading across concrete. He raised the flashlight. "Nothing there. Shadow gone." Air completely still. He swallowed hard and stepped back, but his heel hit something that rolled. He looked down. A child's doll. One he recognized instantly from Prescott House. Burned on one side. Missing an eye. He had left it sealed in an evidence bin months ago. How the hell did you get here? Then the lights in the safe house shut off. Complete darkness. A whisper floated inches from his ear. "I didn't want you to leave." A cold hand closed around his wrist. Zak yelled, stumbling backward, slamming against a metal rack. Equipment clattered to the ground. He tried to turn the flashlight back on, but it only flickered, dim and dying. Footsteps circled him. Small, bare feet padding lightly on the concrete floor. He forced himself to speak. "You're not supposed to be here. You're not even supposed to follow." The footsteps stopped. Something exhaled softly against his neck. Then a giggle. His flashlight finally flared to life, bright and shaking in his hand. The beam cut across the room, and there, crouched above him on top of the shelving unit, was a girl-shaped silhouette with long, tangled hair hanging over her face. Her knees bent backwards like an animal, her fingers long enough to curl around the metal edge. Her head twitched once, then slowly lifted. Her pale eyes reflected the flashlight like glass marbles. Zak stumbled backward. The figure dropped straight down from the 6-foot shelf, landing soundlessly on her hands and feet like a spider. Her head tilted sideways, spine cracking. He could feel her staring at him through her hair. The recorder on the ground clicked on again. Playing file. 1/4B unreleased audio, then his voice played again, warped and broken. "I told you not to come back." Zak's chest tightened. He had definitely never said that. He tried to reach the exit, but every step forward made the room stretch, the walls seeming to breathe in and out, the door drifting farther away instead of closer. The girl creature crawled toward him, her fingers tapping the ground, her movements jerky like broken animation frames. He swung his flashlight wildly. "Stay back." The light passed over her face for just a second, revealing her mouth stitched tight with black thread, skin stretched too thin over her skull. but her voice still whispered through the air. "I'm still here." His flashlight died. She was inches in front of him now. He could feel her breath cold, damp, wrong. The air buzzed like a radio tuned between stations. His vision blurred at the edges. A pressure filled the room, squeezing his lungs. Then something else moved behind her, another shape. A woman, this time tall, gaunt, face pale and empty except for hollow pits where eyes should have been. Her hands were tied with frayed rope. Her mouth hung open like it had been torn that way. She lifted one long finger and pointed directly at Zak. The little girl crawled aside, giving the larger figure room to step forward. Zak backed up fast, gripping a metal rack to stay upright. The taller ghost spoke in a rasp that rattled the shelves. "You brought us out." More shapes slid from the dark behind her, dozens of them. The outlines of people. Some short, some tall, all wrong. All bending or twisting in unnatural angles. All stepping in rhythm, as if drawn to him. As if he were the only warm thing in the room. The temperature plummeted again. A wind hit him from the doorway, not cold this time, but hot like exhaled breath from something enormous behind him. He turned. A figure stood by the open door. A man-shaped shadow darker than the entire room. A presence that moved without sound. It raised one arm, a gesture that sounded like bones grinding. The girl whisper spoke once more, not from her stitched mouth, but from everywhere at once. "Don't leave." This time, the shadow reached for Zak's throat. His flashlight flickered weakly. And just as the hand touched his skin, a violent crash shook the far side of the safe house. Metal racks collapsing. Cameras shattering, equipment flying across the floor. Something unseen had slammed into the ghostly crowd. Zak didn't know if it was saving him, or dragging him deeper. He gasped as the dark figure grabbed him and yanked him toward the center of the room, and the concrete floor began to split open beneath his feet. A long, jagged crack tore across the center of the safe house, ripping through the concrete like something underneath was pushing upward like fingers trying to break through a coffin lid. Dust blasted into the air. Zak staggered, trying to pull free from the shadow gripping his throat, but it tightened its hold, dragging him closer to the widening fissure. The child creature crawled toward the crack, head twitching, whispering, "Open, open, open," as if she were coaxing something to rise. The taller woman ghost stepped back, bowing her head toward the splitting floor like it was a doorway. A low groan echoed from below. Not mechanical, not structural, alive. Zak dug his boots against the ground, fighting the pull. His fingers scraped the edge of a fallen metal rack. From somewhere deep in the floor, a sound like a slow, rattling inhale rose toward him. Hot air surged upward, carrying the smell of burned wood and rotting soil. "Let go of me!" He choked, twisting hard. The shadow's grip loosened just enough for him to throw himself sideways, rolling onto his shoulder. He scrambled back, coughing, as the floor cracked open, completely splitting into a wide, jagged mouth. Red light glowed from below, and then a hand-blackened skeletal shot up through the crack. Zak froze. Another hand pulled up beside the first. Then a head heaved into view, charred skin peeling away, eyes glowing faintly like embers, deep in a dying fire. A man's face, burned beyond recognition, but still moving, still alive in some impossible way. The child creature whispered, "Daddy." Zak's blood ran cold. The burned man clawed his way up, dragging himself out of the fissure. As he rose, glowing ash flaked off his body, drifting through the air like floating embers in a ruined house. He slowly turned towards Zak, though his eyelids were burned away, the glowing sockets fixed on him with a horrifying intensity. Zak backed up. "You're from Prescott House. You're the one who..." He stopped. He remembered. The file. Case 14 had been different, darker. The little girl hadn't died alone. Her father died trying to burn the house down with the entity inside. He hadn't been the monster. He had tried to stop it. And if he was here now, something else must have followed him into this safe house. The burned man raised one broken hand and pointed at the evidence shelves, where the girl creature crouched, trembling. Not from fear, from excitement. The stitches across her mouth strained, as if she was trying to smile under them. The burned father rasped, voice broken like air forced through a cracked pipe. "Not my child." The girl twitched violently, then screamed. A piercing, bone-aching shriek blasted through the room without her lips moving at all. Every shelf rattled, lights flickered back to life in stuttering bursts, and Zak dropped to his knees, hands clamped over his ears. The taller female ghost convulsed, twisting her limbs backward, her hollow eyes widening. The burned father lunged for the girl. She moved faster. Much faster. Her body jerked up the wall, clinging sideways like a spider. She scuttled across the metal racks and dropped onto the burned man's back. Her long fingers sank into his shoulders, steaming where her touch burned through his charred skin. He roared, stumbling forward, trying to shake her off. Zak pushed himself up. He could see the girl wasn't attacking the man. She was pulling at the burned seams along his neck, trying to open them, trying to let something inside him out. He grabbed a heavy case from the floor and threw it. It hit the girl square in the spine. She hissed, twisting her head all the way around to stare at him upside down. Her pale eyes glowed like twin moons. She launched toward him. Zak dove behind a metal cabinet, but she struck its side with terrifying force, bending the steel inward. Her arm reached through the warped gap, fingers stretching far longer than human bones should allow. They scraped inches from his face. He crawled away, breath shaking. His shoulder hit a fallen EMF meter. The light spiked instantly. Red, then purple, then blinding white. The taller woman ghost glided across the room toward him. "You cannot leave," she rasped. "Watch me," he muttered, grabbing a broken metal bar from the floor. She raised a hand, and the temperature spiked so suddenly his skin prickled. The air thickened like hot tar, making it hard to breathe. At that moment, the burned father slammed the girl onto the ground. Her back cracked in a way no living spine could withstand. Her stitched mouth split slightly, black thread snapping. A violent wave of air burst from her. The floor shook, and every light in the safe house blew out at the same time. Darkness swallowed the room whole. Only the red glow from the crack remained. Zak heard the girl rise, bones snapping, thread tearing. Her breath rattled like something drowning. He heard the burned father staggering. He heard the taller ghost whispering something in a language he didn't know. And then he heard something new, something much worse, a voice from inside the crack. A deep, echoing voice that didn't sound human. Didn't sound dead either. It sounded ancient. "You opened the door." Zak felt a pull, like gravity itself shifted toward the crack. His feet slid an inch. He grabbed the nearest shelf, holding on tight. From the darkness, the girl murmured, yet her stitched lips stayed closed. "He's coming." The burned father let out a roar filled with agony and shoved his hands into the crack, trying to hold it down, trying to keep it from opening further. Flames burst around his arms as if he were holding back a furnace. Zak forced himself to move toward him. "Let me help." "No!" The burned man screamed. "Run!" But Zak didn't run. He grabbed a heavy equipment trunk and slammed it onto the edge of the crack, trying to wedge it shut. The floor trembled violently, pushing against them. The deeper voice laughed, a low, rumbling sound that vibrated the entire room. "You brought her back." "So I could follow." Zak felt his stomach drop. Prescott House had been haunted by many spirits, but beneath them all, there had been something older. Something the girl was only a messenger for. The safe house walls shook, paint flaking off as the temperature rose higher and higher. The taller ghost backed into the shadows as if even she feared whatever was inside the crack. The burned man's arms began to split, flames bursting from inside him. He cried out but held his ground. "Close it," he howled. "Close it before he..." The floor exploded upward. Zak was thrown across the room, smashing into the far wall. His ears rang. Dust filled the air. Metal racks fell around him. Through the haze, he saw a massive shape rising from the crack, its form obscured by smoke and swirling ash. The girl creature crawled toward it, shaking with excitement. "He's here." The ghostly woman collapsed to her knees, whispering, "The chain is broken." And the shadow that had grabbed Zak earlier began to take shape again, growing taller, darker, more solid. Zak forced himself up, gasping, and looked at the figure climbing out of the floor. Two glowing eyes opened, huge, predatory, focused solely on him. Zak's heart hammered. He staggered backward as its enormous hand gripped the edge of the broken floor, pulling its towering body upward, ash cascading off it like black snow. The burned father, barely standing, turned toward Zak and shouted with all the strength left in his ruined body, "Don't let him take you!" The towering entity pulled itself fully into the room and lunged straight at Zak with impossible speed. Zak threw himself sideways, feeling the air tear past him like a hurricane blast. The entity's massive hand slammed into the concrete wall where he'd been standing. The impact shook the entire safe house, cracking the wall from floor to ceiling. Shards of concrete rained down. Zak hit the ground, rolling, coughing, scrambling to get out from under collapsing debris. The creature's outline flickered like a glitching silhouette, sometimes solid, sometimes smoke, its shape too large to fit inside any normal room. Its limbs bent at unnatural angles. Its eyes glowed brighter each second, locking on him with predatory hunger. The burned father staggered between Zak and the creature, raising his arms. Flames burst from his cracked skin, wreathing his body in fire as he roared at the monster. "You can't have him!" The creature responded with a guttural rumble that shook the air like a freight train. It backhanded the burned father with such force the charred man flew across the room, smashing into the metal shelves before crumpling to the ground, fire sputtering out. Zak tried to run for the exit. The girl blocked his path instantly. She dropped straight from the ceiling with a sickening thud, her limbs folding on landing, then snapping back into place. Her head jerked rapidly, like she was trying to shake free of something deep inside her. The stitches on her mouth stretched, threads snapping one by one. Zak stumbled back. "Stay away from me." Her small hand rose, not reaching for him, pointing at something above him. He looked up just in time to see the towering creature's shadow stretch across the ceiling like spreading black wings. It was already behind him. The creature's clawed hand wrapped around his chest from the back, lifting him off the ground like he weighed nothing. Zak gasped as his spine arched backward unnaturally under the creature's crushing grip. Air burst from his lungs. His vision blurred. The creature's voice slid into his mind, deep and echoing like 1,000 whispers layered over one another. "You opened the gate. You brought the chain breaker. And now you are mine." Zak's breath hitched. The room warped around him, darkening until only the creature's glowing eyes were visible. His ears filled with static. The world started slipping away. Then, a violent shockwave blasted through the safe house. Zak's body flew from the creature's grip and crashed into the evidence table, sending recorders and EMF meters skidding across the floor. The creature reeled backward, roaring as if something unseen had struck it. The taller ghost, her hollow eyes glowing, stood in the center of the room with both arms outstretched. Ethereal energy pulsed from her hands, cracks of light splitting the darkness. Her broken voice thundered, "You will not take him." The creature snarled, smoke coiling from its body. It lunged at her. The ghost pushed her hands forward and unleashed another shockwave, but the creature was stronger. It tore through the energy like ripping through paper, grabbing her by the neck. Her entire body convulsed, flickering like a candle in a windstorm. Zak forced his shaking body upward. He had to move. Had to do something. His foot struck the audio recorder on the floor. The same recorder from Prescott House. It blinked red and played automatically. And what came out made every ghost in the room freeze. A child's voice, clean and human, not warped, not demonic, speaking softly. "Daddy, it's cold." The burned father's head jerked up. His glowing eyes widened in pure agony. He crawled toward the recorder, dragging what was left of his scorched body. "Lily?" The girl creature twitched violently. Her limbs folded inward, her stitched mouth stretching too wide. The voice on the recorder soothed. "It's cold here and dark." The burned father reached the recorder and touched it gently, like he was afraid he might break it. He whispered, "I'm here, baby. I'm right here." The girl creature shrieked a sound that rattled every bone in Zak's body. Her head whipped toward the recorder. She sprinted, claws scraping the ground, but the burned father stood up and blocked her path. "You are not my daughter!" She lunged at him, screaming through the threads of her torn mouth. He caught her wrists, flames bursting from his hands, burning through her pale skin. She writhed and screamed, black smoke spilling from her body. Zak staggered toward the exit. The creature noticed. It threw the ghost woman aside and surged toward him, its enormous arms slamming down where Zak had been standing a second earlier. Concrete shattered. Zak dove behind a toppled rack. The creature roared, its voice shaking the ceiling. "You cannot leave. The debt must be paid." Zak yelled back through ragged breaths. "I didn't bring her back. You followed the evidence." But he stopped. He suddenly understood. He did bring her back. When he recovered artifacts from the Prescott house, when he moved the evidence, when he opened the safe house doors, he created a bridge. The girl's ghost wasn't the problem, she was the bait. The creature was the real entity hidden beneath Prescott House, and Zak had dragged it across state lines straight into this building. The girl screeched one last time and threw her body at her burned father. Flames exploded outward, engulfing them both. The fire spiraled upward, consuming the girl's form in twisting ribbons of smoke. Her body dissolved, shredded into ash. The burned father collapsed to his knees, hands glowing bright gold just for a moment before his flames flickered out. He whispered, "I did it, Lily. I kept him from you." Then he disintegrated, turning into drifting sparks that faded into the air. The creature roared with such ferocity the entire safe house shook. Its massive form surged forward, smashing through the metal racks, ripping them apart like tin foil. Zak sprinted toward the exit door. It was only 10 feet away. He grabbed at the handle, pulled. The door didn't move. He pulled again, harder. Locked from the outside. No, please! He slammed his shoulder into it, but it didn't budge. He was trapped. The creature's shadow washed over him like a storm cloud. Its voice filled the room. "You cannot run from what you opened." Zak spun around just as the creature reached him. Its hand engulfed his entire upper body, lifting him off the ground again. His feet dangled, kicking helplessly. The pressure on his ribs tightened hard enough to make him gasp, then harder still until he heard cracking. Through his fading vision, he saw the ghost woman dragging herself across the floor toward him. Her form glitching, fading, almost gone. She tried to raise her hand. Tried to help him. The creature flung her aside like dust. Zak's head swam. His arms felt numb. His vision blurred around the edges. The creature pulled him close, face to face with its burning eyes. "You are the vessel," Zak tried to speak, but he couldn't breathe. His ribs creaked in the creature's grip. The monster pressed its forehead against Zak's. Darkness flooded his mind. A force pushed into him, suffocating, crushing, trying to crawl inside his thoughts. He screamed. He felt something break inside his head, like a crack splitting open, and the creature's essence began pouring into him like black smoke forcing its way into a sealed room. Zak convulsed violently. The entity whispered, "You opened the door. Now. Become it." Zak's body jerked, his eyes rolling back, when suddenly the entire safe house alarm system turned on at once. Red sirens blaring, sprinklers blasting cold water from the ceiling. And again, and again. Each strike sent tremors through his arms, but did nothing to stop the monster. Aaron's face was turning red, then purple. He gasped, struggling for air. His flashlight fell from his hand, clattering to the floor, its beam spinning wildly across the walls. Zak screamed, "Let him go." The creature finally turned toward him, not in anger, in amusement. Its eyes narrowed. Its burning jaws split into something like a smile. Then it tossed Aaron like a ragdoll. Aaron flew 10 feet, slammed into the opposite wall, and dropped motionless to the floor. Zak's heart screamed louder than his voice ever could. "Aaron!" He ran, slipping over water and broken equipment, and fell beside him. Aaron's chest moved, but shallowly. His eyelids fluttered. Blood trickled from his nose. He was alive, for now. Zak turned, rage boiling through him. The creature stood in the haze, towering, distorted, its body absorbing the shadows around it. Its voice entered Zak's head again, deeper this time. "You brought another vessel. He will serve until you are ready." Zak lifted the crowbar again, gripping it tight enough his cut palms bled. "You're not taking him." The creature leaned forward, its massive face inches from Zak's. Its breath smelled like burned wood and old graves. "You cannot stop what has already begun." Zak braced for the killing blow. But instead, a violent surge of energy ripped through the safe house. The ghost woman who had been flung aside and fading burst back into visibility. Her hollow eyes glowed blinding white. Her broken form rose from the floor, limbs trembling as strands of energy spiraled off her like unraveling threads. She screamed a single word, "Run!" Her hands shot forward. A blast of force hit the creature so hard it staggered backward, roaring with fury. Its massive feet dug cracks in the floor as it resisted her push. Zak grabbed Aaron's arm, dragging him toward the exit. "Come on, man, stay with me." Aaron coughed weakly. "Bro, what is happening?" Zak didn't answer. He couldn't. He pulled Aaron through the pouring sprinklers, across the shaking floor, toward the safe house door. Behind them, the ghost woman unleashed another blast, her body cracking with light. The creature retaliated, slamming its fists into the ground, sending shockwaves exploding through the building. Metal racks collapsed like dominoes, equipment smashed into the walls. The alarm stuttered, lights blew out. The ghost's voice trembled, strained with agony. "Go!" Zak dragged Aaron into the doorway and stumbled out into the main hall. The moment they crossed the threshold, the temperature shifted violently. The hallway was warm, normal. The oppressive air of the evidence room didn't follow them. But the door behind them was shaking, hard. Something massive was slamming into it from the other side. Boom, boom, boom. Zak, Aran whispered, voice cracking. "We're not making it out." Zak pressed him against the wall. "Yes, we are. Yes, we are." The door behind them groaned, metal bending outward, screws ripping from the frame. The creature's glowing eyes peeked through the widening crack. Aaron cried out. Zak flung himself in front of him, arms spread. From inside, the ghost woman screamed one last time, her voice ripping through the safe house like tearing storms. "Take my chains!" The hallway lights exploded. Something hit Zak's chest hard like invisible shackles snapping into place around his ribs, around his spine, inside his mind. He gasped. Aaron grabbed him. "Zak, what is it?" Zak fell to his knees. Images flooded him, rapid, violent images of the Prescott house. The burned family, the girl's death, the father's sacrifice, the creature buried beneath the basement for decades, chained by the woman ghost. The woman ghost was the one who had bound it. She had been the prison. And now, she had given those chains to Zak. He looked up, trembling. The creature tore the door off its hinges and stepped into the hallway. The walls shook. Tiles fell from the ceiling. Zak rose slowly. The entity saw the ghost's glowing energy swirling inside him. It roared, a thunderous roar of hatred. "You cannot buy me again." Zak's voice came out deeper, layered, trembling with echoes of the ghost woman. "You will not have him. You will not leave this place." The creature lunged. Zak lifted both hands, and ghostly chains shot from his palms like bolts of white fire, wrapping around the creature's arms. The monster screamed and thrashed violently as the chains tightened. Zak stumbled, gritting his teeth. The chains burned through him, scorching his nerves, but he didn't let go. Aaron pushed himself up, clutching the wall. "Zak, Zak!" "What are you doing?" Zak's voice shook as he shouted, "Run, but go!" Aaron staggered down the hall, falling, crawling, forcing himself away. Zak planted his feet, pulling the chains tighter. The creature lunged again, dragging Zak with it. They smashed into the wall, cracking the concrete. Zak screamed in agony as the creature fought the restraints. The chains glowed hotter. The entity shoved him harder. Zak's feet slid across the floor. The wall behind him buckled. The creature's voice flooded his skull again, deep and furious. "You cannot contain me. You are nothing." Zak tightened the chains with every ounce of strength left in him, and roared back, "I'm not doing this alone." The hallway lights flickered, and the ghost woman appeared behind him, faint, broken, fading fast. She placed her cold, transparent hands on his back. Her whisper drifted into his ear. "You're not alone, but he's not done." Zak's breath hitched. "What?" The creature pulled, and the chains snapped. Zak stumbled forward. The creature surged up to full height, towering over him, shadows swallowing the hall. It raised one massive hand to strike him, and something even bigger slammed into the wall behind them, shaking the entire safe house to its foundation. The creature and Zak both turned as the structure groaned. A second voice echoed from deep inside the safe house, a voice Zak recognized instantly, a voice that should not have been there. A voice whispering from behind the collapsed shelves. "You forgot me." Zak froze. That voice, thin, broken, childlike, slipped through the smoke and darkness like a whisper carried on a dying breath. The girl. The same little girl who had said, "I'm still here." The same girl whose voice had been recorded in the Prescott house 2 weeks after Zak left. The same girl whose death had started everything. The creature turned its head sharply toward the collapsed shelves. Its burning eyes narrowed, as if recognizing something it feared but refused to acknowledge. From beneath twisted metal and broken equipment, a faint glow began to seep out. It pulsed softly at first, then brighter, slow, rhythmic, like a heartbeat. Zak staggered backward, clutching his ribs as the creature moved one step toward the rubble. And then he heard it again. "You forgot me, but I didn't forget you." The shelves shifted, then lifted. A small figure rose from beneath them, hair dripping, feet hovering inches above the ground, eyes glowing with a pale, sorrowful light. Her dress hung torn and soaked, burned in places. Her tiny arms hung limp, but her gaze was fixed on Zak. Aaron's distant voice echoed weakly from down the corridor. Zak? Bro, what is that? Zak couldn't answer, because the girl wasn't looking at Aaron. She was staring directly at him. You left me, she whispered. Zak shook his head. No, I didn't know you left me with him. She pointed a trembling finger at the towering entity. You walked away and he woke up because I called for you. And you didn't come back. Zak's heart twisted violently. The creature snarled, its molten jaw dripping dark embers onto the floor. You are mine, it thundered at the girl. No, she breathed, the glow around her flickering like a dying flame. Not anymore. The ghost woman behind Zak flickered, dimming, her energy nearly gone. She whispered, She broke the first chain when she cried out. Her death awakened him. The girl floated higher, her glow intensifying. Zak stepped forward. You're not alone now. We're here. I'm here. Her eyes soft in pain, melting into something like fragile relief. You came back. The creature roared, cutting through the hallway with a blast of heat that forced Zak to shield his face. The girl's glow turned white-hot, burning brighter, and then she screamed. A piercing, heart-shattering scream. The walls shook violently. Ceiling tiles cracked and crashed down. Ghostly energy surged out of her tiny body like a sun exploding. The creature staggered back, claws scraping across the concrete floor, buckling it. It shielded its face, roaring in fury. Zak dropped to one knee, shielding his head. The ghost woman collapsed behind him, fading fast. The girl's scream built to a monstrous crescendo, then cut off. Silence. Silence so deep, it felt like the world had been torn open and nothing was left inside. Zak slowly lifted his head. The girl floated before him, trembling, utterly drained. Her glow flickered weakly, like a candle in its final breath. The creature lowered its arms. Smoke rolled off its body. Its eyes flared. That child, it snarled, belongs to Emmy. No, Zak shouted hoarsely. She doesn't. He surged forward, grabbing the fallen crowbar from the floor. His hands bled instantly from gripping the twisted metal, but he didn't stop. He ran adrenaline, replacing pain straight toward the monster. It swung its massive arm. Zak ducked beneath it and drove the crowbar into its knee useless, but it bought him 1 second. He grabbed the girl, lifting her into his arms. She weighed nothing. She was cold, fading, but she clung weakly to his shirt. Don't let him take me, she whispered. I won't, Zak gasped. I promise. The creature roared and slammed its foot down, cracking the floor in a spiderweb of destruction. Zak staggered backward, nearly falling. The hall was collapsing around them. The ghost woman, her form nearly transparent, moved beside him, touching his shoulder. Take my strength, she whispered. I can't, Zak began. You must. Her voice shook, breaking. Or he will take both of you. She placed her hand over his heart. A surge of cold shot through him, freezing, electrifying, burning all at once. His vision blurred white. A sound like chains tightening echoed inside his skull. Then the ghost woman vanished. Completely. Her energy ripped into Zak like a storm. His eyes snapped open. He was glowing. Faintly, but undeniably. The same white energy that had bound the creature in the evidence room now pulsed through him with violent intensity. The creature stepped back. For the first time it hesitated. Zak rose to his feet, still holding the girl. You're not taking her, he growled, voice layered again with the ghost woman's echo. Not now. Not ever, the creature charged. Zak threw up his free hand. White fire chains erupted from his palm, dozens of them, wrapping around the monster's torso, arms, neck. The entity screamed as the chains seared into its flesh, burning symbols glowing across its shadowed skin. Zak's legs buckled as the energy tore through him. His spine felt like it might snap. His lungs felt full of smoke. He tasted blood. But he didn't stop. The creature dragged him forward step by step, its massive claws digging into the floor. Zak pulled harder. The chains tightened. The hall lights exploded in a shower of sparks. The monster roared so loudly the floor shook like an earthquake. Aaron's faint shout echoed from far behind. "Zak, don't let go!" Zak screamed, pulling the chains with everything he had left. The girl wrapped her arms around his neck, trembling. "Please, don't let him take me. I won't," Zak rasped. The creature lunged, one final time, and Zak yanked the chains down with a violent, primal roar. A shockwave blasted outward, tearing through the hallway like a bomb. The creature's body split with cracks of white light. Its roar choked off, it froze. White fire consumed it from the inside out. For one heartbeat, the world held still. Then, the creature shattered into ash. Silence. Heavy, suffocating silence. Zak collapsed to one knee, gasping for breath, sweat pouring down his face. The girl's weight in his arms grew lighter and lighter. He looked down. She was fading. "Hey, no, stay with me." She placed a tiny, cold hand on his cheek. "Thank you for coming back." Zak felt his throat tighten painfully. "I'm sorry. I didn't know. I swear I would've. I'm not angry anymore," she whispered softly. "I just didn't want to be alone." Her glow dimmed. Her form flickered. Zak shook his head desperately. "Wait, please don't go yet." She smiled a small, peaceful smile. "You won't forget me now." And then, she dissolved into a soft burst of white particles. Gone. Zak knelt in the ruined hallway, staring at the empty air where she had been. Slowly, painfully, he stood and turned to see Aaron limping toward him. "Bro," Aaron whispered, voice cracking. "What? What was that?" Zak looked at him exhausted, shaking, covered in burns and ash. "That," Zak said quietly, "was the end of something that should have never begun." He stared down the hall. The safe house was destroyed. The evidence room was gone. The chains were gone. The ghosts were gone. But deep in the structure, far below the floor, something creaked. Something breathed. Zak's eyes widened. Aaron heard it too. "Bro, please tell me that was the pipes?" Zak swallowed hard, fear returning like ice in his chest. Because the voice that drifted up from the shattered foundation was not a pipe. Not a ghost. Not a child. It was the burned father's voice, whispering in a trembling, urgent tone. He wasn't the only one.